So the steps to the circle of excellence. First, it's important to understand when you actually apply this technique. The nice thing is about the circle of excellence is that it can be applied for so many different reasons. The thing to kind of stick to in terms of rule of thumb is what are situations that someone would really want to operate from a state of excellence. So that can be in a certain context where they feel unresourceful and they'd like to feel excellent instead. But even like, for instance, if you're really good at a job interview, you may still want to step into a circle of excellence anyway, because it's more likely you get the job that way. For instance, when I'm doing my work as a trainer, I actually step into that person of myself that that makes me the most excellent trainer that I can be. So in that sense, this tool can be used for so many different things. Also, you have to understand that this is kind of like cooking with NLP. It's not so much the importance, or isn't so much in executing the steps at the right order. The importance is that you create an internal experience for someone by which you can alter the tools to have the right ingredients to cook your own meal to really provide custom work. So what are the steps into the circles in the circle of excellence? First, you ask the client to create a circle on the floor in their mind's eye. It helps to get the client relaxed and feel safe. Maybe use a little bit of the Milton model as you learned in class. You let someone create a circle of excellence on the floor in front. And then you point as if for you, as the actual coach, this circle is already a reality, even though you know that you're about to hallucinate this circle. So you make sure that you understand where on the floor this circle is. Then what you ask the client to do is to ask questions like, what color does this circle have? Does it have a sound? Does it have a certain texture? Does it move? Is there maybe music? Now be careful, it's not you installing this in the client. The client has to come with the idea as to what lives in terms of the four-tuple, VAKOG, inside their circle. Then you ask, so what is a resourceful state that makes excellence for you excellence? Because excellence is kind of like a vague word. It's actually a collection of different resources or emotional states that you need to be able to access at a given time in order to be excellent as a person. So you ask the client, what resource is required for you to step into an excellent state? Then they will mention a state of some kind. Then you elicit that particular state. You can either go back to, for instance, in time where they experienced this state already being present. You can actually future paste them or create that state, just like you learned how to set an anchor. Because all that the circle of excellence really is a spatial anchor. When somebody hits that peak point, you ask them to step inside the circle, and you create an experience inside this circle of excellence with now this new resource present. Then you ask the client to step out. This is the moment where you break state. You could ask, for instance, what somebody had for lunch, or what is their phone number backwards. I actually usually prefer to do something that's really within the map of the client. But it's important you break state, that they don't stay in the emotion that they were inside the circle. You actually need to do that because when you then step them back into the circle, you can test your work. So after break state, you ask the client to step back in, and then you test if your anchor, your spatial anchor, actually worked. You move the client out and ask them then what other resource do they need in order to create the state of excellence. You elicit the state. Right before they hit peak, you step them into the circle, and now the first resource ends up mixing with the second resource. You step them back out, break state, test the circle again, and then you repeat the process for every resource that they want in order to make excellence. Then you're done with the pattern. but you want to make it useful for a future pace. So what you do is now think of this context. Think of a context, and that's usually the context where you started to do this process for in the first place. Think of this context that you could use this circle of excellence for. I want you to imagine, so you associate the client into that future where they're going to be in that previously unsourceful context. And then when they hit that point, then you let them step into the circle of excellence, into the spatial anchor inherently. What at that moment in time kind of happens is that previously unresourceful state that they would have in that certain context would be actually overwritten by the state of excellence. So it's inherently you actually collapse the anchor, that's one. And the second thing that you do is you put somebody in an incredibly resourceful state in order to actually do this new activity. It builds confidence and it builds excellence. Then what you ask the client to do, and after finishing the entire pattern, is that now that this circle on the floor is on the floor, you can ask the client to actually reach down and pick it up and put it in their pocket, or you can ask them to imagine that they can have it with them. So it's just a matter of when they are going somewhere and they're in a certain context and they want to have their circle of excellence, they can just pop it on the floor and step into that particular state of excellence at any time they want.